Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manusky. Welcome back to another of the Greater Education Council of Connecticut series. And today we are interviewing Ann Manusky, who is a quiet but very hardworking person in the background. She is the president of the Connecticut Republican Assemblies, CTRA, as well as the chapter president for American Parents in Education. Did I got that right?
Connecticut PIE, Parents Involved in Education.
All right, Connecticut PIE, Involved in Education. And so let's just start by asking Ann about her background. Where were you born?
Oh, so I was born in Pennsylvania.
Oh my goodness,
I'm
Dutch
a
country.
Penns Woods woman, and northeastern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Dallas, a town called Dallas.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how did you find your way to Connecticut?
Yeah, that's a long story.
We've got time.
I went to college in Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, and I had aspirations of going to graduate school afterwards, and moved to Maryland with my aunt and uncle, and got a job in Washington, D.C.
I see. What did you study?
Oh, I studied psychology
Okay.
in undergrad, and then I did go on in grad school. Studied counseling.
Okay.
But when I was in DC, I happened to take a job with the National Association of Trade and Technical Schools. So
Okay.
I worked for the Accrediting Commission,
Right.
traveling around the country reviewing schools. So I really got interested in, education as a whole. And I guess that was my first real point of looking at education in a wider lens.
Right. So would you say in looking at accreditation that made you more sensitive to issues about, quote, quality in education or how well people are being taught?
Yes, yes. And also the fact that there were trades, which I knew of, but to really be going to schools for culinary, gunsmithing, a myriad of things. Yes,
quote,
you name it.
the trades.
Yes, the trades, right.
Right. It could be construction. It could be the what they call it, the hospitality industry, stuff like that. Sure. Okay. So then, all right. So now you're in Maryland.
Yes.
And then you're in D.C.
My husband and my husband, who I knew from high school.
Good high school sweethearts.
We weren't, but
oh, you fought with each other in high school.
We were friends. But he and I, he got a job in Texas, in Houston, Texas. So I went down to Texas, and then I did go to graduate school at the University of Houston, and I got my master's in education counseling. So that's when I started off working with the kids. I got a job in a school doing counseling work with children.
Okay.
That gave me another wider lens as to what issues existed in low socioeconomic schools, project schools. I was in a project school.
Okay. And this was in?
Houston.
In Houston. Okay. What year are we at now, roughly?
90, late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. Or no, 90s. My graduate degree was 93.
Right.
So
okay.
mid-90s.
So how long were you in Houston?
For 6.5 years.
Okay. And then suddenly an opportunity showed up in Connecticut?
Suddenly, my husband, I was pregnant with our first child, and so we wanted to be back in the Northeast to be around family so that they could be with my husband's parents were still alive. My mother-in-law is still alive in Pennsylvania, and both my parents, my father was alive. So we wanted our boys to grow up with Grammy and Pop-Pop and Grandpop and aunts and uncles. So we were only 3 hours away from there. So that was successful to us. I had been studying education when I was in Washington, and Connecticut and Massachusetts had the best schools.
Right.
So when we were looking to move, that was one of the reasons why we chose Connecticut.
Okay. And so then you ended up in Easton.
Ended up in Easton, lovely little town, farming community, somewhat similar to where my husband and I grew up. And then my eldest went to school, and he was a bright, capable student, and was not meeting the standards of their gifted program.
Oh.
And so
And what standard was that?
they had no standards. They
Okay.
had one of my friends gave me what they had written down for her on a napkin.
All right, so it's kind of subjective.
Yeah, very. I mean, yeah. And back in those days, we chose to let him continue on until 5th grade, and then found him another school,
Okay.
private school. But it was very sad to me because thinking that, well, Connecticut has the greatest schools, the best schools, and so the rose-colored glasses were off.
Yes, that's right.
And then my second son had vision issues, and they did not. I did a lot of research on my own because things were not working at that time. Common Core had come in.
Okay, so now we're up to 2010. Or they're
2010,
in
28.
2012.
Well, actually, Easton was one of those school districts. They were I can't remember the title, but in the statutes it says that they were affiliate school districts or something that were supposed to get Common Core,
Okay.
but then they blanketed it for
For everybody.
everybody.
Okay.
They had the Common Core crosswalk. I think it was
The Common Core crosswalk?
yes, CCSS or something like
My,
that.
these guys are so creative.
They were very creative, and they were forcing my child in 2nd grade to write paragraphs. And from developmental classes, understanding children, that wasn't the norm. That was really forcing children to do things that they were not. Some were, so on the bell curve. Yeah, my oldest probably would have done that in 2nd grade, but not my second son.
I mean, this doesn't quite match my concept of Common Core, which is, again, a form of standardization built around the idea that you have to concentrate on certain things and basically beat them to death.
Well, the beating to death part was the point where, like, I would explain to people, they would take the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, which were typical.
I'd say
There was a
fifth grade.
range, like typically 3rd, 4th grade. But back in the day, when I was a kid, we got S's and U's, satisfactory or unsatisfactory
brother.
or,
Yeah,
or
okay.
whatever.
Right.
And actually, my children's private school, that's what they did up until I think 3rd or 4th grade, because they understood that what I learned was the vision system doesn't completely mature until children are about 8 to 10, or 10, around 8 to 10 years old, but some
Okay.
kids have problems with it, and that's why teachers were very flexible about their reading at that point.
Okay.
And we're reinventing the wheel with reading again.
Yeah.
So I knew that they were Common Core is forcing Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys down to 2nd grade when the kids aren't ready. So they're causing them problems. They're causing dyslexia in
Now, was
many
it-
kids.
I never
Which
heard
is
of
really-
such a thing.
oh,
If you
I've
could
got-
cause dyslexia by giving them material, it's too difficult?
Because they're pushing the reading. Sam Blumenfeld, do you know who he is?
Blumenfeld or Bloomfield? No. All right, no, I don't.
Okay, I'll get you some information from, do you know Hal Shurtleff with,
I've heard the name.
he spoke at one of our conventions, Camp Constitution, and he has Sam's works, and yeah, I was shocked because this was after my son had gone through vision therapy and everything, but it does say how the schools are pushing children so the vision system isn't ready,
Yeah.
and it's corrupting
I find this very strange because we know that from psychology, there's a whole, in child development psychology, there's a whole corpus of literature and knowledge that recognizes that there's a process that goes on. It's physical as well as mental, through which children, in a sense, mature as they become older. And the notion that they're ready for something at a different time doesn't always necessarily follow. I think one analogy for that is this little girl who was well intended. When the kittens were born, she saw that their eyes were closed, and she thought, well, that's not right. They can't see where they're going. So she forced their eyes open so she thought they could see. Well, what she did was she made the cats blind for the rest of their lives. So, I mean, I offer that as an analogy or a metaphor for what's being done.
Right, right. No, that's very basic. I went to Hartford and tried to talk to legislators about dyslexia and about what's going on. This was when we were trying to get rid of Common Core, which I think, well, unsuccessful for 10 years,
Right.
12 years, whatever it is.
It's been, but
yeah.
if we were to go back, all right, I'm muttering and stumbling only because I want to deal with the fact that I look upon the educational system as being constantly subject to faddishism, right? So Common Core was the next big fad. Well, time has passed. Now we have CRT and SEL. So this would begin to tell you, well, maybe they kind of lose interest in all things Common Core as a result. I don't know if that's true or not. That's my perception.
And they lose interest because the majority party in Connecticut wants you to forget about them. And they don't want to deal with it because now we're going to bring in something new. So just forget that that's in the background. But the bottom line is they're pushing curriculum down onto children still.
As we speak.
Yeah. And they even had it's called response to intervention. So we're breaking your kids, but we know how to fix them.
Sure. Where have we heard this before? Right. All right, I have to tell you, I haven't heard this perception of the public education system. This is news to me. I mean, here I have been sitting around complaining about dumbing down curricula, and you're telling me some weird version of the opposite is happening.
Well, it's dumbing down the children. It is. I mean, we've been in Hartford however many years ago, 2010, 12.
Yes, sure.
Fighting the fight.
It was 2009,
February
February 27th. Yes, we were standing there across from the Capitol building. Yes.
So it's been a long time, but they've put that curriculum in. They've put those plans in, and then they're putting worse DEI, CRT, CSE all on top of it. And now they're saying, you know what? We need to teach kids cursive. That's really important. We need to have a financial class.
Okay, well, cursive, I'm all for cursive because the benefit.
I am too.
Okay, so, it's kind of like we've been explaining this to you for how long now?
Exactly.
And now you're waking up to this? Wow. What can we expect next?
But now what they're,
oh, cool.
I'm
We gotta
guessing.
teach them Shakespeare.
So one of the things, I don't even know where Shakespeare is. Shakespeare is through the lens of, what they've done was the curriculum director in Easton, the current one, she's there 10 years. She said, at one of the meetings, we're going to be interweaving the curriculum. We're going to interweave, math into social studies and science and everything.
Yeah.
So now they're interweaving DEI.
We're trying to, yes.
CRT.
Sure. Well, this has been kind of the goal all along, right?
Yeah. Now
the way I would characterize it is that they're using ever finer thread to weave a curriculum. It started with the coarse threads of CRT itself, but then you have the finer threads that will take a story, a lesson, an example, a concept, and shape it in terms of Marxist principles while not making it seem like it's Marxist.
Yeah, Common Core 6.7.8, so middle school basically, is activist training. There's threads of activist training. And I want to say like 2015, when we were, finally, with a microscope almost going through the threads, as you said, to find out that they're teaching them activism.
Right. Well, there's the activism, but then it's the individual ideas that they would teach. Finding different ways to communicate the oppressor-oppressed model, and ignore everything else. The hard part for me is, where in this do you see a real intellectual challenge? Where do you see them trying to get the kids to actually, I'm going to say it, think? Okay? They talk a good talk about critical thinking. But at least to us, I would think, when you see examples of Marxism being put into the system, those will never be the subject of critical thinking. As far as I can tell, maybe there's a way to do it. I'll just mention it, homework on critical thinking. If you were to go to Amazon and start looking for books on critical thinking and then start reading the sample pages they give you, you'll immediately realize there's a problem. It is possible to even pervert critical thinking.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah,
Right.
I think a lot
So,
of the authors today are just I don't know, paid off to write things with
well,
a certain slant. And
I would say they're
it's tough.
conditioned. I mean, again, it's the hard part is you have to stop accepting certain things as true and start questioning them. Okay, so what does that look like as a process of inquiry? Becomes a course in philosophy. But anyway, okay, so here we are in Easton, Connecticut now, and you've given me some examples of how. So, I mean, can you trace for me, for the audience, the history, okay, of what you saw in Easton from day one when you looked at that education system to where we are now? How has it changed?
Well, over time, they've just continued. As we said, Common Core was coming in when my son was in my middle son was in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then our youngest son, we never put in the public schools in Easton. And that's a challenge. I mean, how has it changed? It has continued to the smoke screen of we're having these Board of Ed meetings, we're improving education, we need more money to improve education. But the children today, I wrote an article in the Connecticut Sentinel this week, and there's a program called Second Step.
Okay.
And I FOIA things all the time. I FOIA'd the curriculum, superintendent, I think it was Tom McMorrin at the time, and now McKinnon. But she would, the Stephanie Pearson-Ugal, the curriculum director, would be supplying me with materials. Well, she would give me the scope and the sequence and then some of the materials.
Okay.
Not everything.
So
and I was asking questions about this second step. Well, the second step looks like it's a refined outside program. It's not home done in the school.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Oh,
when
well,
they
sure. I mean, it's like they always buy in curricula from other. That's the life of the educational consultant. Have I got something for you?
Right. So now I would not get answers as to the materials.
This sounds so typical.
And just a day beforehand, James Lindsay, do you know who James
Sure.
Lindsay is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I have his book. I have not read it yet.
Yeah, he would not be welcome in liberal circles. No,
Marxification of Education. He said, you need to see this, or something on Twitter. You need to see this. So I watched it, and here it might have said Second Step or SEL. And lo and behold, there's a person, maybe a teacher, showing a class how this is, you would call this a rectangle, but
oh yes, I saw that, the cognitive dissonance class.
Yes, that
Yeah,
this is a circle.
Okay,
this is a circle, students.
I have different takes on this. Now, I understand that the first reaction, harkens back to 1984 and 2 + 2 = 5 and all those good things. And that's treated as a form of cognitive dissonance. But you've taken psychology, I've taken psychology, and we know that that's not all that cognitive dissonance is about. It could be, you could reduce cognitive dissonance down to a person you look upon as a bad person doing good things. Now you got to resolve this contradiction in your head. How could a bad person be doing good things? But the idea of, all right, I know that, all right, here I'm going out a limb, so forgive me. When I look at something like taking kids to look at a square and then make a circle when the certain color is said, is to set the stage for being able to, I'm going to say it, drum roll please, think creatively. In other words, to be able to look at something and see it as something other than what it is in front of it. The trick is that so long as you don't stop there, okay? So now kids, when you see that green square, also think ellipse, think triangle, think something else, think blue birds. And so you're building out a set of associations with something. And so long as you're doing something like that, that's kind of juicing the brain to look at something and to not take it as is. I mean, you can easily look at it and say, yes, that's a green square. But then you're developing the other associations with it. I think, for example, of these mnemonics, right? How you memorize things. You, to memorize something, so here's what you need to remember, and now you come up with this wild image associated with it. So now you remember the wild image, that makes you think of this. So I see that as, that working along those lines. But again, so long as you don't stop there.
I understand what you're saying.
Right.
However, in a developmental, in our young children,
Yes.
where they're learning things and expecting that the adults in the room are telling them things that are
Factual.
like we've named something a manila
Right.
folder,
Right.
a manila rectangle,
Right.
and that an adult in a school is saying this is a circle, this is a manila circle, or this is a green circle. That is causing, I would have to check with Dr. Miriam Grossman, but this psychological changing of allowing someone to think something is not what it has already been formulated as.
Right.
And this is where they're breaking the children in this second step program. What they're doing with the gender ideology is after second step is done,
Oh, geez.
I also wonder
Okay.
wonder about
All
the
right.
AA system, that why are they calling it second step?
Yeah, where's the first step?
So the gender ideology, if they are confusing these children with a concrete object, they're reducing that process of thinking that this is a certain object and adding confusion. Now we're going to say, you know what, you can be anything you want to be. And when I was a counselor, I had a book like back in the day about young girls being anything they wanted to be, which of course, yeah. Now they're telling them they can be either sex at the age of 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, okay.
Adding to the confusion. And some of these children, again, they're doing research on it now, collecting information, but children who are in homes with maybe just one parent is trying to make a living, working, have them in after school, a lot of confusion. These kids may be more at risk of being pushed down the LGBTQIA++
Is there research
portal.
showing that?
I'm reading Dr.
Miriam.
Miriam Grossman's book.
Sure.
So
Lost in Translation.
Yeah. So I'm again from study and from seeing what's going on. It's frightening. It's frightening, and the parents don't know. I don't know if you know this, but there's a group called Parents Defending Education, and
I've heard of them, yes.
they've taken policies of school districts across the nation where they're hiding the gender ideology, gender transitioning. So if your son Bobby goes to school, he can be Sally during the day, and they call him by her and everything, and then he goes home as Bobby.
Well,
this is a frightening recipe for psychological
You probably
issues.
saw I think it was on Telegram or CT or on Signal, a list of the school districts in Connecticut that have this policy.
Yes,
Now,
Easton Reading is one of them. Yes.
but I'm surprised that not all school districts have this policy, at least in terms of how they're reporting it. So who knows who's lying?
True. CABE and CAPS are two NGOs that are very bad. The public needs to know that these people are unelected individuals and are pushing the majority party's wishes to destroy education, destroy what you think you're sending your child in. The Common Core diva. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
Common
sure, I
Core
remember her.
Lynn.
Yep, yep.
You know, you know, people can go and see her pages and a wealth of information, but we're doing a hashtag child abuse in the classroom, and that's really what it is.
Right.
I think Anita Hogue actually was the first person to.
Okay, so this seems to raise the question then about building out an audience. I mean, you got 10,000 hits there, right? We're in a state.
I think, yeah.
We're in a state of 3 million people. I just seem to keep defaulting to we need organizations, we need institutions. Okay, so CTRA, which we'll get to, is certainly one of them. Building out this education council is another. You know, what Linda's doing with Fight Voter Fraud, CCDL, Yankee Institute, Family Institute. Those are our anchors, okay? Those are our ships in the storm. And yeah, so it just seems like that's where a lot of efforts have to be directed. But at the same time, certainly one of the first things we're discovering, and this station suffers from it too, is it doesn't matter how good or popular or well done things are that are produced here. They have no mechanism for knowing how many people have watched it. There could be 1 million people who watch this, and they'll never know because there's no way, there's no feedback process to do it. So this is, you know, one of the other problems that we're confronted with here. If we're trying to push back against, you know, the overwhelmingly, I mean, the bandwidth that liberals have for communication in this state, you know, is so far in excess of what the conservatives have. It's not even funny.
Well, it's been built in, and people have been brainwashed to think that the certain what is it called? The media services of Connecticut, that they're real and that's an objective view, and it's completely subjective, and people have had to learn. I think more and more people are seeing through the cracks. And
right. So here's a tidbit, the two-part tidbit. The first part is that Sally Fink originally had published an actual newspaper, and I was doing what I could to help her with it. But, you know, it was another case of she was a one-woman show. She took it as far as she could, and that was it.
Well, she's still online. She
yeah,
has,
she is.
yeah.
All right.
She does great articles.
But to me, that hard copy is worth at least as much as developing an online presence. That said, it really has to be part of a more complete plan, something we'll get to discuss later. Okay, so that is, in my mind, critical. And here's the second part of the tidbit. It's shown that if, you know, you have what are called newspaper deserts, right? Areas where there's very poor news coverage with a local paper. Connecticut's actually pretty well covered, but if you look at other parts of the country, not so much. And it turns out that if you just take the simple case of no real sources of information and a source of information, the district or area that has a source of information, there's a substantially higher rate of voting than those where there's none. Okay, well, if more people are voting there, what's making them vote? Probably the information source is. So, I mean, that to me, it just tells you all you need to know in terms of getting people to get out and vote. My dinky little town of Killingworth, Haddam is a slightly bigger town. Together they publish a paper, and oh my goodness, when election time comes around, the whole paper is about nothing but the candidates and where they stand.
Good.
Okay, and that's you know, kind of how it should be done. But we know there's a run up to all of that you know we need to be addressing as well. But so the point is, yes, you've got this overwhelming presence of liberal thinking in the state expressed in these newspapers, and we're, you know, trying to catch up in a sense. And there are a lot of places where we just aren't, we need to be, and it's difficult, as Sally can explain. Right, but anyway, let's move to CTRA. Okay. So course, we'll have to mention the real person who founded it.
Mark Anderson, who
Yes.
is our representative of the 62nd District. Yes.
Right, yes. So, I mean, since I know him too, I'll throw in his background, right? It was amazing. Here was a guy, right, dear audience, here was a guy who was actually a government bureaucrat. Who knew? He would have technically been a member of the deep state. Okay, I believe he worked for the Department of Defense?
I think so.
Yes. Okay, so here he is in his, should we say early 50s maybe? He's retired. He's done, all right? Now he's figuring out, what am I going to do? He decides to get politically involved. And he looks around and he discovers this little organization called the Federated Republican Assemblies, right?
Well, he was in, I'll take it a little bit of a step back.
Yeah.
He was in Massachusetts, so
Right.
that's where
That's where he found out
the
about
Mass Republican Assembly, yes.
it. Okay, and from there, then he decided to bring it to Connecticut.
He moved in, yeah.
I
thought that
think that was 2015, was it?
thereabouts, yeah.
Right, okay. And so Mark was doing a good job. He came around the Tea Party groups and others, and certain people were charter members, and he kept pecking away at it. It seemed for a while, though, that, you know, all right, we'll get into it. Just to get this off my chest, for a long time there was a struggle there to build membership. Is that a fair statement?
I think struggle, I think it's always growth. I look at it as, I don't say struggle, but I think as far as we are continuing to, I say move forward all the time, but we want slow growth. And we don't
Okay.
want to have complete, you know, people
All right.
saying that they only ascribe to 10 of our principles. We want people to be 13 principles, and if not, they can be friends. And we do have, we've over 550 people that are either members or friends.
Now, members in the sense that they've signed the list of principles?
Yes, they're principal.
550?
No, so we have 550 either members or friends. So
Okay.
in my database,
Oh, I see.
and certainly our friends who aren't members, who are very concerned about different topics of constitutional, you know, we have allies and groups like CCDL, Family Institute of Connecticut. So we have a wide range. We want to cross-pollinate the state, and it is helping us engage, helping our Republicans, the real Republicans who are in the legislature. It's we the people. I smile when I say that, but that's it. We're grassroots and getting people to testify. Our mission is to elect conservative Republicans, support them and get them elected. However, where we are in Connecticut right now,
Yes.
now everybody's a foot soldier, and if you can send in testimony and engage your representatives, so on the growth part, maybe in the beginning, I guess maybe,
right,
but
yes.
it's still slow. Actually, in January, New London County, we're having a meeting to start
A
a
chapter?
chapter in New London County. So that'll be the first meeting in the new year. So we'll have Fairfield County, New Haven County, Hartford County, and New London. Hopefully.
Well, Middlesex will catch up eventually.
We do have more members.
Middlesex?
And,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So
That could happen then.
It
All
could.
right.
I
All
think
right.
when we started having those meetups, there was just too much distance between members. So the more we populate, the more we get our message out of what we want. You know.
Right. So, I mean, my understanding of the way CTRA is set up now, it's essentially a membership organization. But there is a charter, which is thou shalt go forth and get Republicans elected to office, and that includes getting the right people into your local RTC. That mission still remains to be fulfilled, it appears.
Yes.
Right. So,
And let's get elections cleaned
that,
so that
well,
we can elect people instead of having selections.
Right. That takes on two aspects, I have to say, right? The first, of course, is the voter rolls themselves, and I want to believe that Linda has that more or less well in hand. We did interview her, by the way. If you haven't seen the interview with Linda, you got to go see it. Other part is the machines. Now, this is a much more touchy and controversial area. And, you know, there's so many places here and so many fights that we have in front of us. If just one person would become the champion for that one problem, okay, we don't even have that right now. So somewhere, this is my appeal out there, anybody who's listening, we need a champion for fighting over the machines. Now, I don't think John Flynn is that champion, just saying, I've got my opinions, said it here. But the issue is still that we have unanswered questions. We have lots of unanswered questions about the machines, the suppliers, the software, the relationships between different organizations, who's doing the reviewing, how determinations are being made. And I think it is, you know, they'll put up a fuss, just like all the fighting that we've seen with Mike Lindell and Dominion, to just get to the truth. But guess what? We need to get to the truth, okay? I'll give you one, dear audience. You have a gentleman. His name is Mr. DePerno, I think, or Perno. He's a lawyer in Michigan. Did you hear about this at all? Yeah,
No.
okay. So following the 2020 election, he decided to start doing this investigation, and he got pretty close. He was able to compile a lot of information strongly suggesting that there was something wrong with these machines. Now, the part that was sort of deep-sixed, it's kind of like, why didn't we go to the next step, is that he was able to get a hold of one of these machines. Might have been illegal. Oh my goodness, he's a lawyer. And they popped the machine open, and he got an electronics expert to evaluate the board, and the question was, okay, here's the board. It's inside the machine. It's covered. There's supposed to be no internet connections, but what's this wireless modem doing in here? Okay, what is this wireless modem, that's for communication, doing on this motherboard? All right? Well, they've done their best to avoid answering that, but I think it's very clear to anybody that the nature of a component like a wireless modem on a motherboard can be the following. Oh, gee. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Here, yes, I have my wireless controller here. Oh, we've got some pre-programmed routines here. I can send them to the wireless modem, and I'll choose B. Yeah, we'll vote for more Democrats today. Yeah, okay. It's there, yet it's not being dealt with, okay? And the same problem is in Connecticut.
So,
right?
so it's yes, I did not know that about that gentleman, that lawyer in Michigan. However, one of the things that Connecticut Republican Assembly has been fortunate is that we were connected with Steve Stern of the American Flag Shirt Company, who hosts
Oh, yes, okay, yeah.
election security
I've
meetings.
seen him, Steve Bannon, yes, okay.
Okay, so yesterday was the call, and I was on the call, and they had General Flynn,
Okay.
General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, who's the gentleman that did precinct strategy? Schultz, Dave
Yes,
Schultz.
that's right, Dave Schultz.
Dave Schultz.
Yep.
And Tony, this woman from Pennsylvania. There were over 300 people on the call. So
good.
weekly they're having these calls, and the patriots in each state are connecting. And since we don't have county-wide election processes,
Right.
Pennsylvania did,
Yeah.
so I was familiar with that there. We need to check on our 169 towns and have patriots be at that level, that grassroots level. The machines are tough. There's some lawsuits that Mike Lindell has, and
we
with
know.
Dominion and everything. So, you know, I'm very hopeful that things will be coming out in the next month or so, and hopefully before the time of our primaries.
Yeah, okay. Well, me too. It's just that we know the kind of fight that they're putting up.
Yes.
And let's understand the nature of the fight. I'm making the accusation, you hit her here first, I am among the legion of people, all you people out there, the voting machine companies, we don't trust you. There have been enough cases now. There's been, revelations out of Arizona and Georgia that only add to our concerns. And we, as American voters, fully expect that those machines will be 100% transparent. Okay? 100% transparent. So far, you refuse to let anybody even take a peek. Whatever you feed us is spoon-fed on your terms, and that is not acceptable. So I would not be shocked to find that there would be some interest. Look, there was this, you probably saw the video, right?
Which one?
Where this guy testified, what was his name?
Oh.
And so, but he went up
He was at NFRA.
Okay, so he did the code. You only need 6 lines of code. That's it. 6 lines of code to be able to query the results. Okay, you can come up with more fancy systems and more complicated systems, but anybody who knows anything about programming would look at that and say that would be easy to break up and hide among all the other code. So you, in effect, can have 2 programs running together, and the code will, refer to, it's almost like a virus in a sense that you put into the system, and it will just process through this code that's distributed throughout the rest, give you the desired results. It's outrageous. And nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, there are. So our National Federation of Republican Assemblies had our convention in October, and Clark Curtis?
No, I don't know. Okay.
So there's a video of him, and he had to testify before, I forget which courts, but that he created the program because a senator or a representative hired his company to do it. So he was the one that made this program to change votes.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's just one version. There are many different ways to write these programs.
But there's a lot. There's a lot of people working beside like Mike Lindell is doing a tremendous amount. General Flynn. They're all. There's a gentleman from in Florida, the Florida Republican Assembly, Chris Jersky, and he's doing his part in Florida, and everybody's understanding at a much finer detailed level of what is the corruption of our elections.
Yes.
And so I have confidence that there's things. There was a machine that they actually had at NFRA, and using I think it was a 2-person system, and how to hand count ballots.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's the other thing.
With no computers, with no,
Yes. So, I mean, my sense is that Mike Lindell's been having growing success with getting more and more, what should we say, voting jurisdictions to go to hand counting. Not seeing a lot of progress in Connecticut. I mean, we look at this.
Well, the media hides stuff, so I don't think, I know Linda, I had a conversation, she would come and speak at some of our meetings, and I know she has stuff on her website, but, the media would discredit her or change things around. And,
All right. Well, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, back to CTRA again. There are the chapters, and then there's a convention coming up. What would you say is the membership a little bit bigger than last year, or is it about the same?
We're growing. I mean, we've had some members that moved out of state, but
and died, unfortunately.
Yes, very sad. But we're growing, and as I said, New London County, hopefully we'll have a chapter there. So there were, I think, like around 15 people there in the county who will work to put the charter together. And
right. So my hot issue is, so as these chapters grow, each of them need to task themselves with certain objectives beyond just growing.
Well, they do a lot of education. Jeff Weiss has New Haven County chapter, and his last meeting was how to join your RTC, and so we're sending that out to the other chapters.
Okay.
And we're all volunteers,
right?
And some people are in their prime of their life and hardworking Americans trying to make a living.
You're not suggesting a second career, are you? When you say prime of your life.
No, just that people are hardworking individuals, and
There's only so much you can do
there's
in a
only
day.
so many hours, and but by having these meetings, then other patriots are coming, and you know, sometimes they join, sometimes they don't, but they are becoming CTRA is becoming known to them, and there's a lot of different things that different members can do depending upon their schedules. You know, as I said, last year we really championed a lot of testimony. We had people, you know, writing testimony and going to Hartford or going Zoom.
Right. So that then would be part of my next question, which would be about, you know, like any organization, if you put together your annual report, you're going to list your accomplishments. This year, we managed to, so providing testimony for these bills would be one accomplishment. What would be some others that you could add to that list?
Well, hopefully the new chapter in New London County, that will be another point. Having outreach with connecting other organizations. We had Lobby Day with Family Institute of Connecticut, Moms for Liberty, and CTPI. So we're cross-pollinating, and
so is everybody helping each other, like cross-promoting events as well?
for Lobby Day, we did a joint effort flyer, and then we each came back to our respective organizations and got the message out.
Right, right. I mean, so I think again, from my perspective, having been at the beginning of the CTRA, it was Mark, basically. And since then, CTRA has begun to build out what I would call a leadership. I mean, it's the executive council, but it's the leadership. And that's leadership that wasn't there before. So that to me is a good sign.
Yeah, Mark had Hartford County. Well, he was working on Hartford and Litchfield County at the same time, and that's so Hartford was one of the first actually. New London County came, or New Haven County came in first, officially. But yeah, again, it's what can people do? What are they interested in? Are they willing to sign up for the 13 principles? Or if not, then they might just be a friend and.
Well, one of the curious things, though, is imagine a person's in charge of just recruiting. That person could go to those who are, quote, friends and say, if you want to help recruit other people, here's how we'd ask you to do it. And so in a way, it's kind of ironic that somebody who isn't quite agreeing to all the principles could find somebody who would.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, word of mouth, like people will say, I didn't know about this organization. It's like, we're about 7 years old now, and we're slowly, connecting more patriots.
Yeah, well, I've got one better than that. When I lived in Greenwich, we had this guy up the road, a little section called Banksville, and there's this guy there who ran a lawnmower shop. Lawnmower shop had been there for almost 30 years. And the guy who ran it, Herb, would tell a story. Yeah, even to this day, I still have people who come in and say, I've lived in this area for 25 years, and I had no idea you were here. Well, now you know, and I'll service your lawnmower. So yes, I mean, people are so, and I'm guilty to a certain extent of this too, how we just don't make ourselves as aware of who's in our environment and what they're doing as we should. So, and so the same problem extends to, you have to reach outside these bubbles that people exist in order to make them aware of CTRA.
Well, in the political realm too, it's such a caustic time. So the majority party pushes everything forward, and Rovember and all their
Rovember?
Oh yeah.
What's
that was big,
Rovember?
and that was Easton. That was my representative is Ann Hughes.
Yes.
Who is one of the most progressive Democrats in.
Yes.
Democrats.
All right.
Yeah, Rovember. That's how they were trying to
I
push
see.
the Roe v.
Wade.
Wade.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, they're very creative.
Yes,
but,
they are.
But then if
Well,
you're
we
a
have to be
general,
at least as creative.
if you are just a person who just wants to live and enjoy your life, I was never involved in politics.
Yeah.
I voted. I was actually an independent in Washington, a Democrat in Texas, and now I'm a Republican because I finally saw through certain things.
Yes, well, I think our problem is not unlike those scenes from Encounters of a Third Kind. Okay? Somehow there was this group of people who's like, what am I, oh, look! Okay. Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah,
So-
well, yeah, it's taking some people, some time to see things for what they really are, and
Yeah.
certainly parents. We have, again, CT Pi. I think there's 500 and some people on that it's a Facebook page right now, but again,
Okay.
we're a chapter of US Pi,
Right.
which the goal is to end the Federal Department of Education. So it's
Okay.
no small feat,
Yeah,
but
it's a worthy goal.
we,
But so
we're
you haven't
working.
tried to put any events together yet?
So US Pi has a movie called Truth and Lies in American Education.
Okay.
So I spoke as CT Pi president at Hartford County chapter meeting and showed the video. So and other people in Connecticut have purchased the video.
Okay.
It's on a CD, or you can stream it for I think $8. I think it's an hour and a half.
Right. So the website is uspie.org.
.org. Yes. And again, we're doing so many things, and it just
I know.
depends upon, like, CT Pi is, pretty much strictly education. So that's kind of the, the arm of education.
Well, at least with respect to Connecticut, I think we've had this conversation before. I'm going to say it. Other than the Greater Education Council of Connecticut, there is no organization that's dealing with education issues here.
Not specifically, yes. I mean,
Right.
we need to talk so that CT Pi.
Yes, that talk
and,
will be off camera, by the way.
And then Moms for Liberty.
Yep, they're in there pitching. Absolutely.
They are, yeah. Hartford County has a very strong chapter. That's who had James Lindsay come in and speak, and we posted that.
Right.
CTRA.
So, I mean, I will give you one example, and I feel comfortable sharing this with the audience. We have to get to the kids directly, okay? I don't know if you remember, but what was his name? Huckabee, the governor.
Oh yeah, Mike Huckabee.
Mike Huckabee had been doing some ads where they have these, colorful booklets that target kids to explain to them. I mean, socialism is a bad thing, boys and girls. Okay, well, something like that's needed for transgenderism and all this other stuff that's going on that counters all this stuff. Okay, I think that is a big gap, or call it a big opportunity, that we're not capitalizing on.
That's a good point. Yeah, there isn't a
we're-
coloring book of sorts.
We have this battle going on overhead. In the meantime, then, there was this other thing. You probably heard about this after-school Satan group
Yes.
that was formed in New Lebanon. And do you know one of the things they have?
They have an after-school Christian program.
As well, but for the Satan kids,
Oh no, what?
coloring books.
Oh.
Okay? Little skull, little skeleton, a little vulture, little goat with horns, color them in, how cute, that's fun. Okay, so we can see how they're getting them young.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Cradle
we
to
have
grave.
to. So we need to do a better job of countering it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work cut out for us.
It's still true.
And it's just figuring out which groups, who's going to do what
Right.
work, and then
Right.
be
Because
more
I mean,
cohesive.
fair to say, for
work
the
across
work
the
you're
state.
doing, I mean, right? I remember a wise old man who told me about being involved in politics and what it takes to build a movement. And he said there are 3 things you need to do: educate, recruit, and educate again. To recruit again, and to keep on educating so you can recruit some more. And that forms sort of the core of what we need to do. You know, you like it or not, I think an example of somebody who's doing that well is Desegregate CT, if you've ever been to their website. That's a model for how we should be doing things. They have a tremendous number of videos, lots of information, lots of, I think they have PowerPoints and not memes, but these graphic things that summarize their issues.
And how were they funded? Act Blue?
Probably, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
But that's the other part of the
Yeah,
discussion,
yeah.
right? I'm going to say it. You know, conservatives, a little too stingy, not really understanding that money is the mother's milk of politics, not getting that whole thing. And as a result, we just hamstring ourselves when it comes to organizations like this because they need money in order to function and move forward. You know,
Money's needed, but the most important thing is people going to vote, people using their voice to testify against issues or for issues, and to contact their legislators, which doesn't cost a whole lot to, you know, sit at your computer and send in. It's time, and sometimes I've been short-sighted on the time because you don't know that these bills are out there because people don't know. It's 4,000 bills in a session, which is ridiculous, but that's part of the majority party plan.
Well, they didn't really get to all those. I mean, that was, so, but this is part of their behavior. I mean, let me give you an example. See, just bear with me, audience, okay? There was a guy. I am going to call this dude out because, oh, am I angry at him. Okay, this was from the protest at the UConn Law School, right? That was back in March, so I'm trying to go back to March here. And he was a person who sold himself as a Republican. There he is, Dan Newmeyer, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Newmeyer. I'm going to give him a free plug, which is not a plug, because when you go to his website, you're going to see this is just another example of how we are deceived. It's ctpolitics.tv. He pretends to be objective in how he portrays things. I had a long conversation with him, and I will admit to you, I had never become so angry, so livid, so fired up. Get ready. He suggested to me rather strongly that some of those bills that the Democrats put up are for one purpose and one purpose only, to jerk us around. They know that those bills will get us upset. They want to get us upset. So I'll give you an example. If you may remember, there was a bill suggesting that if you don't vote, you should be fined. Okay, so were they serious about passing that bill? Maybe not, because they knew full well there's no way it would pass, but they put it up to really get people upset. So let me just tell you, if it's the Democrats in Hartford, those are the kinds of people you're dealing with. Just keep that in mind. Anyway.
Fight voter fraud.
Yes, that's right.
And when people say different things to me, I'm sorry. I mean, you know me long enough, but fight voter fraud, because until we get the Socialist Democratic Party out of Connecticut, and people have been trying. People have been going and voting.
Yes.
Now we're at the point of we need to make sure that they will vote in the primaries.
Okay.
They need to come out, and we have clean elections.
Okay, that said, we've since learned, and we know Mark Minich is the champion here. Mail-in ballots, that whole process for absentee ballot application forms, that is something that we have to master, all right? There are cases out in California where the Republicans did exactly that, and they won those races. Okay?
I'm watching Bridgeport.
Yes, okay,
I'm
yes.
watching the chaos of the Democrats eating the Democrats with the Gomes and
Here,
Ganem.
you want some salt? Here you go.
I think that is going to really destroy their game of the ballots, the absentee ballots. I just have a feeling.
I'm going to disagree there.
Okay, we'll have to beat up after the primaries.
Yes, to see how this, I'm just throwing another one on this. There's this guy, I forget his name, Lamont, it's not Lamont, it's any event. So this was a gentleman, black American, who ran as a write-in candidate in Bridgeport, ran a brilliant campaign. And as a write-in candidate, he got 1,800 votes. Since when has a write-in candidate ever gotten 1,800 votes? So, you know, he's another guy who understands the basics. You get out there, you talk to people, you shake their hands, you listen to them, you know, and you assure them that you're working with them, etc. And bang, 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 and he had 1,800 votes. I think he's still running. This will make it
we'll have to
interesting.
see. Is he a Democrat or a Republican? I don't recognize his name, Lamond.
Well, let's face it. If you're from Bridgeport, you're a Democrat. So
There are Republicans. There are
yes.
Republicans in Bridgeport, and I think people are really watching hey, Wanda's on, Jesse Waters on Fox News. I don't know if you know about that. Where's Wanda?
Oh,
is the
yeah, that's
the
right.
ballot stuffing
I saw one of those.
woman,
That's right.
one of them, and there's the media is actually doing justice to this whole charade.
Well,
so
it's because they realize the self-destructive nature of this. Okay, so now they feel like they have to somehow put the kibosh on it as best they can. Ain't gonna work. You heard it here first. Okay?
We'll see. We can agree to disagree.
Yes.
I'm very hopeful, and people say that I'm too hopeful at times. But
okay, but just we're close to the end here, and they're getting antsy. But the other part to keep in mind is the Connecticut tradition. We've seen this over and over and over again. Who's the last to report in on election night? Hartford. Right?
Didn't notice that. Okay.
And in other words, at that point, they know what the counts are, and they know how many more bags of forgotten, missing, mislaid ballots they need to find.
Even wet ones.
Yes, even wet ones.
I think Bridgeport was wet ones one year. Yeah.
All right, in order to win. All right. Nobody does anything about that. They've got that down. Where are the rules to make sure that this kind of abuse doesn't happen? Ain't going to be coming to us anytime soon. And I just want to add as a final point to this, as we're looking at this behemoth in front of us, the fact that the unions still rule this state is a huge factor. Okay, there are ideas on how to begin to put a dent into that problem, but if we don't address the role that they play, okay, if we don't open our eyes and look at the fact that was it Adamowicz? What was the guy's name? He used to be the majority leader in the House.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a majority leader in the House.
Arasimovich.
And yes, and a union shop steward. Oh, can you say conflict of interest? I can say conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest was reinforced by a speech that he made where he said, so long as I'm in charge, there will never be a bill that gets anywhere near this floor that's against the unions. Wow. Wow. Okay.
Amazing. Didn't know about that
Okay,
one.
so, but this is, and then when you go to the legislative office building, you see these union guys just walking around all over the place. You hear these stories about how they stick their nose into every committee process, and not just in the hearing, but, off camera. And they're just, it's a problem.
It's a problem.
It's
Yeah.
a problem.
But
And on that happy note, I think we're done.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, Ann.